I was sitting and trying out the Diablo 4 beta for a while, and it didn't take long before I quit. While not being able to directly put my finger on why I wasn't super interested, it usually comes down to just one thing, and that one thing is Diablo 1. As a kid, I was one of those who had the luxury to play this. Because of it, I have experienced Diablo's growth over the years, from the very start to where it is now. When talking to my friends about their Diablo 4 experience, they do have their own flaws about it, but they never seem to align with mine. I'm not saying that Diablo 4 is a bad game, I rarely played it, but it didn't capture my interest for half a day for playtesting. And even though I already have many good things to say about Diablo 4, I would still go back once a year to play the first one, and not, for example, Diablo 3. Because you see, I look for something in Diablo. Something the latest games haven't been able to give me. Something that Diablo 1 had, Diablo 2 was losing, and Diablo 3 didn't have at all. Let's begin with trying to explain Diablo 1. Okay, imagine a medieval fantasy setting, with a dark tone. There is a town, there are villagers, there is you, the hero, and there are evil below. To save the town from this evil, you must be brave enough to go down there and get him, and also kill the devil himself. Okay, good. Diablo 1 has been explained. Also imagine being new to games. Perhaps still a child. I had played Zelda when I first got old enough to get into this world of Diablo. I was fast to realize this game was way different than the slightly child-friendly Nintendo games. And I would lie if I didn't feel tense when starting it up on the old PC screen. I navigated to create my character and started the adventure. Now, I had seen my siblings playing the game before, so I had an idea about what I would do. Which was walk around, kill monsters, and listen to English.
Whoa, what can I do for you?
I am from Sweden, so this was a learning curve for me. How old was I? 4, 5? Anyway, the game got me hooked after first launching it. And while I wasn't able to put words on the experience as a kid, I will do that now. I will go through the game's fundamentals in steps and call them elements. Starting with...
The sanctity of this place has been fouled.
Impact. Diablo does this thing so well, I hardly find it in modern games. Some other titles like Thief should get credits for it though. So the main focus had already struck me when I entered the first dungeon. And this thing, I felt, lasted and even escalated over the entire game. I'm talking about presentation and mood. You achieve this by calibrating the hidden parameters for the human eye and ear. As a creator, you need to be able to perceive and just feel if you got it right, if you got the right atmosphere. Right after being bold and moving my character in this dark dungeon, enemies slowly show up, and I do like my siblings did. Click on them. Super fast. Getting used to how the game plays, I venture further down the dungeon and have a great time. Until more of Diablo's elements start to introduce themselves. Shit. Yes, the game is really hard, and even though it follows the formula of grinding your character to become stronger, you at least felt this, and you had to be cautious, like Dark Souls does so well, to keep you immersed. So, now you realize you must be bold and strong to beat it. The enemies, or even the whole game, want to kill you, and want to make you quit. You, unless you have better things to do, want to overcome. While dealing with this and getting a slight adrenaline kick, you feel great, and a slight anxiety feeling from already spending too much time playing when mom didn't like it. But I think I started to get it, even at this age. Mood and feel for a game is such a memorable thing. I hardly feel anything in Diablo 3 or 4. They are both pretty easy, not to make people frustrated, and they're both designed to be a fair experience. I can at least say that for Diablo 3, but definitely saw the same pattern in Diablo 4. To be modest, Diablo 3 and 4 have a really pleasant and well-worked art style. It shows talent and people have been working on it. Diablo 1 looked interesting, yet didn't have today's technical opportunities. Which leads to... What? The game is dark, and it is hard to see what things are before it's in front of you. It's a design thing that I think has lost some purpose in the later Diablos. But I think it's safe to say by now that Diablo 1 was meant to be a scary game, while the later games didn't care too much about that. The later games kept the visual gore, but didn't keep the mystery and overall horror. At least not as well. The light around the character is like a small safe zone, with the outer darkness being full of uncertainty. You have to progress, but you also have to be brave and prepared and take it slow. You will know that death is an outcome by now, so take care. The actual person behind the screen knows this and won't need a cutscene to explain it. Diablo 1 never needed to explain you are supposed to be scared. All the elements combined just makes it so. And with this you make some memorable experiences. Sure, the game doesn't make you want to pause because you're too afraid, but it doesn't make you feel like you can just explore and be fine without scratches. Now let's get to an interesting element that is never necessary, but sometimes even more appreciated. Music, soundtrack, composer score. After Diablo 2 I never remembered a track from a Diablo game. I love going back to hear Diablo 1 and 2's music, but I can't think of any memorable music in Diablo 3. Maybe some fitting ambience noise. Of course there was this well-composed theme song Diablo 3 had, but, you know, should be some more stuff. Music is never a must, but such a bonus that sometimes carries a game through the list of good games. And with good composing, you can even change mood in an already decided setting. For example, it helps that the town music is not hellish and more human, since it's still considered a safe place. And with that said, the chosen tones for each place adds a layer of character to the already decided one. Boost. So, what did Diablo 1 have that I miss in the latest Diablo games? A convincing experience. A convincing game feel. The story was simple, yet built up. And even from the start, the game was very clear about its setting. It introduced things very well, the game had a pacing, and all without cinematics. Almost. It definitely had a few, but some were cut out and only the best stayed as it was released. The final cutscene is pretty cool and gives an exciting vibe for what's gonna happen. But it never needed it. The game itself spoke its story. For something is not good for just having a beginning and an end. It's good because you fill the time span between with elements that play with people's minds. Even though Diablo 1 didn't have so many cinematics going for it, Diablo 2 did this very well. It used cinematics as a taste cleanser between the gameplay and plot in a most fitting way, while always keeping the thread. My favorites being the cinematics for Act 1, 2, and the outro for the original and intro for the expansion. Oh, and also the finale with the Wellstone. It helped to merge Diablo 1 with 2 and make sense of a lot of mysteries about the story, which by then had an epic twist. You see, after defeating Diablo in the first game, the hero must contain Diablo's spirit, to not let it roam across the lands. The Soul Zone is put into the hero's flesh. Questionable? You're right, it's not logical, because it's a trick. Diablo finds a way to live through this next victim. In time, the hero gets weaker, and with him, starts to bring destruction wherever he goes. He is desperate for a solution, and his mind turns towards the east, where he will find answers. Again, Diablo is manipulating the hero to go save his demon brothers, Mephisto and Baal. A genius, yet perhaps an improvised plot twist. And yes, a simple, convincing story. The later Diablo games had mastered graphics and whatnot. The continuing story, though, never got me hooked. I think it's very important to have good introduction scenes that gets the player curious, while slowly showing characters and keeping a pace through an entire game that never loses to capture players' interest. If a cinematic is boring and a player wants to skip it as soon as a few seconds in, just cut it out. If you cannot establish that your game is gonna have some kick-ass cutscenes with an actual director involved in work that understands how to make things interesting without using simple methods like good graphics, writing about this is absolutely necessary. If you need an exaggerated facial expression that someone is scared in a movie or whatever, you tell the watchers, oh, the person is scared. That doesn't mean the watchers feel the same way. No, you need to let it grow on the watcher with convincing storytelling and not cheap tricks. I'm so glad that the remake of Diablo 2 cinematics just amped up graphics and didn't change the already good writing and directed work. I could get into more detail, but I will not right now. Except, don't make Diablo talk so much. It makes Diablo like a whining piece of shit. Diablo don't need to speak. Diablo is not sophisticated. Diablo is like a killer without restraint. You cannot argue with. That is a monster, and Diablo's core design for an antagonist. If you want to design a good antagonist that speaks, you got Bale. For in the end, he is the one making a huge comeback behind the scenes. He is deceiving, manages to conceal himself among humans, for that is his talents. And he is the reason the game doesn't end after the original Diablo 2. Compared to his brother Diablo, he has been designed to speak, so it makes sense. Before the expansion, Bale shows how he successfully retrieves his own soulstone through fooling Diablo's previous follower.
Bale. No. No, 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 no. You have done well, Marius. Now I think you shall have your reward. I don't deserve it.
Then in the intro, he is shown half developed into his true form, about to wreak havoc on a city. He wants to get his hands on the Worldstone, which is the heart of the world, a giant structure beneath the earth. If Bale makes his way to the Worldstone, he will corrupt it, and few knows about the consequences of this action.
Bale! The gates of Sescheron have stood for eons beyond remembrance, and you shall not breach them now. Remove your foul demons from our lands. We stand on the side of light, and you shall not be allowed to reach Mount Ariat. And that which you seek will not be yours.
A planned introduction with some contrast to the first Lord of Terror, Diablo. Bale is the Lord of Destruction.
I shall take your position into consideration.
This is a demonstration of what the Lord of Destruction does to the things that stand in his way, and the Worldstone will be no exception.
Well, it seems your terms are not acceptable.
There are things Diablo 2 lost from Diablo 1, but most changes was in a new direction, and probably meant to be, and generally considered worth it. It has some cool characters, a very well designed character selection, still some dark places, but you can run and can get away from monsters easily, which eliminates the cautious approach a bit. The most important part of Diablo 2 was that it was more online, and a trading system was implemented for it, and people grew a large community. It followed the era of more games being online in general. My most liked part of Diablo 2 was the skill tree, which forced the player to plan ahead, learn, and commit to building each character as viable to kill evil as possible. If you put some effort into thinking before just clicking on a new skill, you got rewarded. It shows how important managing your own shit was, and opened the way for creative experimentation. In Diablo 1, you could find spells to learn instead, which was cool too, but they didn't synergize and sadly gave no room for experimenting builds. Not that Diablo 2's skill tree was perfect. It had a nice concept with some flaws that weren't worked on so much. Getting further to the more recent titles, I find it less fun to go through. No captivating story, not hard enough. No interesting music to help set the tone, at least no bold choice of music. Not a well-established or obvious feel. Is it horror or is it just gore nowadays? They have made more quality of life changes, and they have too short dopamine intervals and gorgeous graphics. Even though some aspects have been simplified, the newer game has a lot of quantity going on for them. A lot of grinding and salvaging and going through boring steps just to make the game take longer. I know many people today like clicking on UI bullshit to get dopamine, so many things are designed to have this. Click on this, click on that, unlock, get a few points if you go into this tab, etc. But in this world, people also scroll through social media like crazy. I think I am a minority for not liking this. Then again, I hardly just sit and scroll social media. I remember trying Genshin Impact and being annoyed about all the goddamn pop-ups to click, just to retrieve some items or something. It was more like an OCD thing to click them than it actually giving me anything. In fact, it doesn't give me anything. It only takes from me. At this time, I've lost track about the whole subject. Okay, to sum it all up, Diablo 4 had the chance to get me engaged, but didn't succeed. So I might never know if there is anything of value inside a game. And right now, I don't care. Time will tell if I will buy the game in the future. There's one game though I will probably buy that's coming soon. But this is all I had to say about my Diablo experience. With that said, I'm leaving. Bye.